Welcome to Connecta Compliance Training. Today's topic is respirators. Anyone that wears a respirator in a workplace is required to go through this training annually. Today, we're going to be talking about why is a respirator necessary, what are the limitations and capabilities, how to use a respirator, how to inspect it, how to properly put it on and remove it, and do the seal check before each use, and then finally how to maintain, and where to store it. This training will not be complete until you have a discussion with your supervisor at the end. So let's get started. The first thing to know is that when you are exposed to a hazard, you must take steps to reduce or eliminate it. PPE should only be used as a last resort. Now, there are many different types of exposures. We want to go through the basic ones. First, there's dust. That's fine particles in the air, mist, small droplets in the air. And then we move on to fumes, tiny particles caused by heat. And grinding, gases of all different types. Vapors that come off of liquids. And sometimes, there's a combination of these. Those get to be very difficult to deal with. Particle size is also something we need to consider. OSHA says that we need to have a respirator program. Each program must have an administrator. If you are potentially exposed, then you must be in that program. In some cases, you use a respirator for voluntary use, and that's fine. When you use a filtering face piece, you don't have to comply. But if you use a traditional half mask, you do need to comply with the last parts of the program. So what's your exposure? Is it dust, mist, fume, gas, vapor? So here's a made-up example of what we do to determine what kind of a respirator you need to have. First of all, OSHA says there's something called the action level. The action level means the company needs to have a program. The permissible exposure limit, or the PEL, is where you need to start wearing a respirator. And then there's also something called the TLV, which is an independent agency, the American Conference of Government Industrial Hygienists. We also must look at that. Some of the compounds have a short-term exposure limit. We must know what those are if there is one that applies. And then finally, there's a ceiling that tells us we can't be exposed for any time over that. Now, on a typical workday, your exposure is going to vary. So if you follow this line, you can see where your exposure is going up and down throughout the day. This is very difficult to track to determine your time-weighted average. That's why we have to have an industrial hygiene program. We have to know what you're breathing. We need to know how much you're breathing. And we need to know how long are you going to be breathing that toxin. Sometime, we need to have an industrial hygienist come into a survey where you'd wear a sampler for an entire work shift. Then we can go about determining what kind of a mask to use, a half mask, a full mask, or some other kind of mask that's going to give you a higher level of protection. Then the company will select the appropriate respirator for the job and the exposure that you're going to have. The first level is a filtering face piece. Filtering face piece gives us 10 times the protection factor. A half mask gives us protection factor of 10. And then there are some people who wear a filtering face piece for voluntary use. And that's fine as long as they follow the company policy, follow the instructions on the container that the masks come in, and always follow the manufacturer's recommendations. If you need a higher level of protection, a full mask may be appropriate. You'll get 50 times the PEL when you use those. And if there's even a higher level required, you could wear a powered air purifier where you get 1,000 times of protection factor. These come in various styles and configurations. There also may be an airline respirator, which would give you 1,000 times the permissible exposure limit. In any case, you cannot exceed the IDLH. That means immediately dangerous to life and health. Those various situations would require something like a self-contained breathing apparatus. They have a 10,000 protection factor and can be used in an IDLH atmosphere. All respirators must have a respirator medical evaluation questionnaire completed before they wear a respirator. The medical questionnaire is out of the OSHA rules, and the evaluation must be completed by you. It must be done in company time. The information on the form is to be kept confidential. And then it is sent to a professional licensed healthcare provider. All tight-fitting face pieces, including filter masks, half masks, full masks, all need to be fit tested annually. It could either be a qualitative fit test, which is the minimum, gives you a 10 times protection factor, or you may need to go to a quantitative fit test, which is done with a special piece of equipment attached to a computer. Those protection factors are then determined by measuring the air outside versus inside the mask. In all cases, you must follow the manufacturer's recommendations for maintenance. Respirator training must be done annually. Why the respirator is necessary. Limitations and capabilities. How to put it on and remove it, and how to properly clean and maintain and store. You must be able to demonstrate all of those when you discuss this with your supervisor. You'll need to demonstrate all of this for your supervisor. Again, why is it necessary? What are the limitations? How to inspect it and use it. How to put it on and remove it. How to maintain it and properly store it. Now this training is not complete until you discuss this training with your supervisor. So that's it for now. You work safe. Make sure you go home safe.